Welcome everyone to the Adjunct Faculty Learning Community Showcase. This year, the Adjunct Faculty Learning Community and the Center for Teaching and Learning partnered with the Office of Academic Diversity and Inclusion through an Inclusive Excellence Grant, and we recruited former members of the Adjunct Faculty Learning Community who have a long-standing history of teaching at UNC Charlotte and whose courses touch a large number of undergraduate students. Members implemented the Student Experience Project into their classes. During today's showcase, you will hear from faculty about their experiences implementing the Student Experience Project interventions and the impact that it had on students' sense of belonging and overall student outcomes. Sam?
So the SEP was created to tackle inequities in college success by building community and, as Jules just mentioned, a sense of belonging in our classrooms all across campus. And it aims to not only improve success for all of our students, but also to target 3 priority populations with the most significant inequities and outcomes. And for the survey that you all have used throughout the year in your time in this learning community, that would include women, students from structurally disadvantaged racial backgrounds, and those students who are financially stressed. And so we know that having these positive experiences in their individual classrooms really translates to student success overall. And so when we compare the percentage of students receiving a grade of D or F, or who withdrew from a course, to the percentages after full implementation of the SEP, what we see is a drastic, significant decrease in the number of students who fail or withdraw from their courses. And this is true for all of our student populations. And so while all of our students do improve, more importantly, the equity gaps shrink. And these comparisons are for the same faculty teaching the same courses, with the difference being implementation of these interventions that you all have been working on this year for the Student Experience Project.
And I'm AJ Simmons with the Office of Academic Diversity and Inclusion. I just wanted to speak a little bit more about SEP. So since its start as a small group of STEM faculty all the way back in 2019, the SEP has expanded to become a large collaborative community of different types of faculty from various disciplines. One thing we all have in common is our commitment to implementing these innovative, evidence-based practices that we are so excited to hear more about today. As you tell us more about the work that you were engaged in this learning community to create equitable learning environments for your students.
Thank you so much, AJ and Sam. So here's how we're going to run today's event. There are 10 adjunct faculty who will present today in lightning rounds, 7 minutes each precisely. We will have a break after 5 sessions, and then we'll resume. And at the end of all 10 lightning talks, we'll have time for Q&A for the Adjunct Faculty Learning Community members. Please take notes of the questions that you want to ask them during their presentations and save those for the Q&A session at the end. So let's go ahead and get started with our first presenter of the day, Dr. Felicia Harris.
All right, good morning, everyone. And again, just a great opportunity to participate in the Active Learning Academy this semester. Just some background, got interested in participating in this program, one out of a need coming out of the pandemic and just some basic concerns about how students were feeling once they were back in the classroom. I did student experience project surveys in the fall as well as this spring. So my materials and data is going to come from those particular classes. 2 large classes of 50 students. So this is where that material is coming from. Again, just right learning environment, exactly how it sounds. The environment is just right for our students. So that was part of my premise, again, for participating. And I'm gonna go a little bit up as I'm talking. Again, fall 22, spring 2023. And the data specifically that I was looking at, of course, was the student connectedness results. And this percentage is the percentage that we started with. And for belonging, we started with 86%. And specifically looking at those two in terms of gaps and seeing where there were places where I could continue to help students bridge that gap. Building communities. I'm going to be working on another project next semester, but building communities within the classroom. And I think the results that I saw had a lot to do with the space. I was in one of the active learning community spaces. So that was fantastic at being able to build community and not be just, organized in a traditional setup. And then some of the strategies that were helpful in terms of building this social belonging as well as connectedness. And I didn't put a second screen up, but I wanted to mention the two numbers that I was going back and looking at over the week. So for student connectedness that started off at 75%, it went up to 78%, which is not a lot, but actually in terms of what students were saying on the surveys, that was significant. And then the second screen that had belongingness was 86%, and that went up to 90%. So some of the simple things that we looked at doing in the class was making sure students got a chance to know each other. That sounds simple, but in a big class, we have to be strategic about how to do that, whether it's in a discussion chat on Canvas, or what we did was do some of those things within the classroom with topical things that they could talk about. Group work. I love doing group work because, again, opportunity for students to work together. Some students might not always have the best feeling about group work, but I think it, again, bridges that gap so they get to spend some time, if they choose outside of the classroom, building that project and getting to know each other. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing and really started doing this during the pandemic was having an opportunity to do some social checks at the beginning of class. It could be around current events. We have a lot going on. Students have a lot going on in their lives. So this kind of chit chat really, one, helps me get to know students, and two, again, they can get to know each other in their table pods in that active learning classroom environment. The second thing, and I think I saw it more this semester, this belonging, connectedness, uncertainty, particularly in the class I did this semester. I had a few students that had some hardships, students, and we're at exam time, so I, of course, can see a little bit of the anxiety right now, but having conversations with them around knowing that, you will have periods of time where you will have transition and uncertainty and even some barriers. And we have wonderful support systems, support mechanisms on campus that we can help you through those times of distress. Sharing stories about ourselves. That also was another strategy that was very helpful, particularly in that big class, and sharing stories, personal stories that would help them in terms of challenges that they might face, academic, being able to make, working, and had lots and lots of things going on as they were, trying to do their best in the classroom. These are some resources that I know we'll have posted with the presentation, but that were very helpful. I was very pleased, again, even those small increment changes, but to see those changes, within an academic semester, was fantastic. And again, was grateful to be able to participate this semester as well. Thank you, Jules.
So I kind of want to echo what others have said so far, that this has been kind of eye-opening for me from the first adjunct faculty learning community that we were a part of. I always get a lot of good information from this, and I'm always able to kind of tweak or change my teaching methods because of it, whether it's the instructional stuff that we go over or the breakout sessions that we have with other instructors that kind of give shed light to new things. So this program, we kind of looked at how do we change our teaching effectiveness. We had the 4 sessions that we've talked about. And one of the things that I took from this that was helpful was the breakout sessions. With the student experience project, I just have it listed here, how we gauge student involvement, why it's important. We had the 3 surveys that were administered over the course of the semester. So the first one was administered the first week all the way through until the last week. And it's helpful for me, or it was helpful for me to be able to see how students' perceptions or viewpoints changed over the course of the semester. Helps me kind of tailor the different approaches I took in the course. This just kind of goes into why it's important, or why I felt it was important. The SEP survey questions ranged in topics that varied from identity, safety, institutional growth mindset, that feeling of social belonging and social connectedness, self-efficacy, trust and fairness, and kind of like we've talked about already, it is important because UNC Charlotte is comprised of various groups of people, and you want to make sure that you, as an instructor or professor, are doing everything you can to make those students feel welcome, engaged, and provide a safe space for those students. To me in particular, it's important because my courses this semester are asynchronous. They're remote. It's hard to, this is one of the common themes that we talked about over the course of this program, was that it's hard to gauge that student feedback in that group setting. So when I look at the report out for the course of the semester on identity, safety, institutional growth mindset, all of those things that were discussed, you see some common themes. I was particularly pleased that it did gradually increase through the course of the semester. One area that I do want to highlight and take note of here is that everything is in the upper 80s, 90, low to mid 90s, except for social connectedness. So that's the one, and when we get to that slide, I'll kind of hit on, that's the one that I really wanted to, I paid more attention to that one, being a remote course, and how to change that, and how to make students feel connected in a space that is kind of split off from everything else. So with social belonging, this just looks at how students feel in the class. Do they feel like they belong? Am I creating a space that makes them feel that they can be themselves and speak freely, whether they belong in college, belong in the course? And so I just kind of did some screen grabs from what the survey results showed me. We made 5% progress. You can see survey 1 through survey 3. So it kind of, slow and gradual, but that's what I want to see through the course of the semester. Trust and fairness is also a big one to me. I want students to feel like I have provided them a safe space, that I treat everyone consistently, and that I'm given feedback on how to change if I can. And so again, you can see here a gradual uptick, 2% change from the first to the third survey. One of the things that I found very valuable from the SEP surveys was the qualitative piece, where you're able to see, what students are saying, how can I improve as an instructor, what do students need from me, and how I can change the teaching methods to make sure everyone feels that it is a fair and consistent space. And so you can see from the first surveys through the last surveys that they do feel comfortable asking questions. They feel welcomed in the course, which was really important for me. Identity safety is another one that was important. I just kind of drew some of the main themes from this so that I didn't grab everything all at once and influx of information to you guys. But identity safety, whether the classroom environment encourages a sense of community, which is difficult in a remote setting. This is one where it helped change some of the teaching methods. We did a lot more discussions this semester than we typically do. A lot more of outside resources that were shared to make students feel like they had an opportunity to share their stories. And then last one, this is the one that I wanted to focus on. Being a remote course, students don't feel connected. They feel like they're in their own space. They feel like they're behind a computer screen and it just stops and ends with them. So I really look for ways to increase that social connectedness, make them feel like they were connected to their peers. And you can see here, it started out at 64%. It did end up going to 69%, but still lessons learned from that on how to change in the future. And again, that qualitative piece was really helpful in helping me understand how to tailor things based on the student feedback. So some lessons learned from this: ask your students questions, they'll answer. So students have a lot to say. Some do it without being prompted, but if you ask your students questions, they'll answer. Frequent engagement is critical to student development. So constant check-ins, the multiple surveys that we had was really beneficial. A one-size-fits-all approach is an outdated line of thinking. So being able to change up your approach to tailor to specific students is really important. Listen to the student feedback that you get and change up your teaching methods. I was able to incorporate a lot of different resources to get to the visual learners or the more hands-on learners and things like that. And then just take everything that you learned from those surveys, learn from your previous experiences, mistakes, and all of this will help me with upcoming courses in future semesters. So that is all I have. I want to thank the hosts again for this opportunity because it was very, very helpful.
Alrighty, so this here is my presentation. I am Dr. Tanika Green-Acree, and I teach for the School of Social Work. But the course that I did this experience project with was for Social Work 2183. This here is just a little summary of the actual Adjunct Faculty Learning Community. It began in 2014 from a needs assessment that identified needs and challenges of adjunct faculty at UNCC. And then the purpose of the program is it aims to improve teaching effectiveness among adjunct faculty by focusing on community building and implementing strategies through the SCP initiative. We met 4 times, and these are the dates. And throughout the times, we were introduced on how to implement the student experience project to the learners. And once we were able, when it was their week to get the surveys, they had a week time to complete it. So a little bit about the student experience project. There were 6 areas of focus that we focused on, which was identity safety, institutional growth mindset, self-efficacy, social belonging, social connectedness, and trust and fairness. For my course, I had a really good participation rate, pretty much between 25 to 30 sometimes, minus one that dropped. They did pretty good on the surveys. They responded. I wasn't expecting that because it's an asynchronous course, but I am proud of them and surprised that they did respond. This here is just an overview of all of the ratings and the areas of focus that they rated on. The lowest part, I would say, would be the social connectedness. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slides, upcoming slides. As far as the equity overview, a little bit that I did notice, there was a gap between self-efficacy with the structural advantage race and then low financial stress. As far as the survey response rates, it went a little bit deeper into the actual demographics of my learners that took the test. That took the survey, and this is just some numbers. I did have more girls, women in my course than men, which is normal for social work. So we need more men in the field. But I was surprisingly surprised that they didn't rate higher on financial stress. I know as a student, I was financially stressed all the time. So I don't, that was surprising to see. Some of those areas that I focused on with the survey and with my students was the social connectedness, where some of the responses I saw that, they did receive clear feedback from the instructor. So that made me feel a little bit better. Knowing that they could be connected a little bit more to me. And I will discuss a little bit more about the interventions used for each of them at the end. Trust and fairness. That score went up towards the end of the last survey, and that is good to see as well. Institutional growth mindset went up as well. I'm glad that they were able to understand the curriculum and the assignments that were, offered in the course and learn from it. Self-efficacy, it went down a little bit. I just think it's because it's an asynchronous course, and, they may or may not know, what's next after this course. Some of the interventions implemented were, of course, the course layout, we do have discussion posts, so that allowed them to engage with each other and provide feedback as well to each other. I did a mid-semester check-in where, I sent out personal emails, just checking in, seeing how they were doing. For some of the for some of the assignments, I had a Q&A session where they can chime in and ask questions. No question was a bad question. Some did participate, but others preferred to email me privately. And then also one thing, since it is the School of Social Work, their main focus really was, okay, am I going to be able to get a job after I finish the program? So I made sure I included potential jobs in the field of social work that was based on the modules that I was teaching that week. Other interventions that I implemented were, I established expectations early. I made sure I had weekly detailed announcements of what was due and what they'll be learning that week, as well as I provided productive feedback. APA format was a big thing for them. They were very nervous about doing APA format because some had never been introduced to it. So I made sure I gave them productive feedback on how to correct it and write properly while empowering them as well. And then also I provided financial resources. Sam gave a really good template to us where we were able to, tweak it and enter our own particular parts where we were able to share with the students of different financial resources available on campus. Overall, I would say this was a wonderful experience. I did complete it in 2019 as well, but COVID hit, so I did not get to finish it in its entirety, but I'm able, excuse me, but I'm glad that I was able to complete it this time. So thank you everyone for this wonderful program.
Good morning, everyone. My name again is Heather Brousseau, and I'm an adjunct lecturer in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology here at UNC Charlotte. And as a member of the very first Adjunct Faculty Learning Community, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to participate again by way of the Student Experience Project. And today I'm going to share with you some of my SEP interventions as well as findings from the surveys. So for the SEP this semester, I selected my juvenile corrections course. It is an asynchronous online class comprised of 50 upper level undergraduate students majoring or minoring in criminal justice and criminology. So based on the findings from the first SEP survey, I identified 3 areas of focus, or 3 areas that indicated to me that there was the greatest need. The first being identity safety, the second, social belonging, and the third, institutional growth mindset. And there were several SEP interventions designed to address each of these areas. Some of the existing aspects of my course align well with the recommended strategies, so I simply enhanced some of those. For example, with respect to establishing norms for course conduct, now the syllabus policy or syllabus statement on inclusion was already in place, but I just simply ensured that it was meaningfully echoed through the course communication over the course of the semester. In terms of encouraging connections, I implemented check-in Zoom office hours. So unlike traditional office hours, these were designed specifically for students to simply drop in for a chat and share anything from their thoughts on field-related matters to just simply how their life is going. In terms of new interventions, I implemented the WISE feedback framing statements. And as we know, particularly in an asynchronous online course, feedback is so very important. So with the WISE feedback framing statements, such as the one that's delineated on the slide here, from this strategy, I learned that feedback can be more than just simply highlighting strengths or areas in need of improvement for a student. It can be, and perhaps more importantly, an opportunity to express confidence in my students and affirm their belonging, not only in the course, but at the university. With respect to acknowledging diverse identities, there were several ways in which I implemented this intervention. One of the recommended strategies was highlighting the achievements of graduates and professionals in the field. And so to do this, I invited an alumnus and former student of mine to serve as a Zoom guest speaker this semester. And she is an accomplished behavioral specialist in the field who was able to share her own belonging story. And she's very open about her experience as a Black woman in the field who works with a range of vulnerable and system-involved populations. And several of my students in their reflections on the event indicated that, that it was just extraordinarily valuable for them to see someone who looks like them succeeding in the field and overcoming the challenges that one might confront. In addition, I increased the number of posts on a bulletin board that I created for the course. And here, this included highlighting the accomplishments of professionals in the field from a range of identities, as well as along with providing general internship and career opportunity information, and including events that were particularly organized, mindful of diversity. So let's take a brief look then at what the survey results revealed. On this first measure, identity safety here, I was pleased to see improvement here with respect to, let's see, 98% are responding positively by the third survey. Here again with social belonging, I was pleased again to see improvement with 97% responding positively by survey 3. And then finally, with the institutional growth mindset, I was pleased to see this rate reach 98% and stay there by the third survey. So with respect to the qualitative findings and feedback, students expressed the following, and I'll just briefly highlight one or two of these. Let's see, one from survey 3. I believe the instructor grades fairly and has faith in all of her students. The second one, Professor Brousseau really takes the time to give us feedback and help us when needed. She is such an encourager and is very helpful and truly cares about the success of her students. So I'm very pleased that with the help of these interventions that students affirmed, some of the goals that I had with respect to the student experience project. Finally, I want to conclude by briefly reflecting on my own experience. I found that, through these interventions and strategies, it increased my own critical reflection on the way that I teach and the way that I engage with my students. And it also diminished, again, that digital divide that we find so common in asynchronous online courses. And finally, it enhanced my understanding of my students. I now have a better appreciation, particularly for the struggles and the challenges that many of them face. And I have certainly a greater sense of understanding and a greater, just really, I guess I'm impressed by the resilience of my students. And so these are just some of the benefits that I will take from this experience. And with that, I want to thank you all for the opportunity again to work with and learn from each of you.
So my name is Elaine Librata Jenkins, and this past spring, I participated in the Adjunct Faculty Learning Community as we supported students through their student experience project. What stands out for me from the student experience project's tagline is the word transforming and succeed. It was really informative and really a life-changing experience to be able to participate here as a cohort. And so with SEPs, their mission is to find strategies to transform students, college students' experiences to meet those levels of success. And so their focus areas are these 5 focus areas, which is through research, network design, our faculty core collaborative, innovation labs, and student voices and leadership. My experience through those lenses is that there was this really great alignment between my philosophy of teaching approach and the SEP mission and vision that they have, which is to create spaces where all of our college students can be successful when they come through my course. It also offered me much of a lot of self-reflective process and a sense of validation. I've been teaching before this cohort here for about 4 years. And so it was great validation to kind of have a set of, yes, what I have been doing, it's working. And so this experience provided me some of that quantitative and qualitative data that was good to validate ways in which my students were experiencing my course. I love the fact that we were able to come together and collaborate as a team, and we were free to explore ideas and strategies. And Dr. Sam, she's been so great in supporting this process for us to that 3rd point. So that's my experience with the project. I wanted to kind of measure my student success through the lenses of how was I promoting sense of self-efficacy. And so one lens I looked at that when I was looking at my data was participation rate. Another one was social belonging, which is really important for me that my students have a sense of belonging, and that could get them to continue to come to my course so that we can co-learn together. And so it was great to get some of the students' qualitative feedback that was reported on our surveys. And then finally, social connectedness. So how does my leadership in the course infer their social connectedness and become leaders within themselves in our cohort together? And so some of the strategies that I implemented to measure success through those lenses of self-efficacy, social connectedness, and sense of belonging was effective social belonging messages. So I was very intentional through my weekly messages to my students. And when we met in class, I created some belonging stories, shared my own experiences through my life path, encouraging connections in those classrooms. And one thing that stood out for me in this process that I did not have a sense of before was just a number of students that really self-reported financially stressed, how financially stressed they were. So that really was an eye-opener for me. And so Sam was really great in supporting me in how do I support this group of students in my course. And so some really good improvement there. Just a sample question of what the survey questions look like for our students as they were answering those. So I wanted to just give everyone a visual of that. And then I'm just going to walk you through what my scores show in terms of in this graph, we're looking at the percentages of building students' experiences to self-efficacy. So as you can see on time point 1 was our survey, which they took perhaps a week after we started with the project. So, and then we ended at 100% by time point 3 with some of those interventions. Took a look as well at the social belonging. So where were they at time point 1, and how do we build on that as I intervene with some of these effective strategies. And again, kind of bringing that aspect of the group with the financially stressed, really keen in on resources and supports. And so this is where we ended on time point 3, positive 5% there. And then finally, social connectedness. So how connected did our students feel in my course as we moved through the course? We meet weekly, but the majority of our course is also online. And so again, through some of those interventions and just kind of being aware of where they were and connecting with them on an individual basis, kind of switching some things around of when I was available for them. And for each other, and how do they participate as a cohort together, and bringing them into conversations and discussions in class. And so we started at the beginning with a 78%, and then we ended up with 86, so a point, positive 9%. And then this is my favorite part of, I love the numbers, but the qualitative feedback. So I just kind of drew from each time point what the qualitative responses were for my students. In terms of what their experience really was in our course this spring. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. So good morning, everybody. And I wanted to share with you all what my experience was with the Student Experience Project. And I just wanted to put it in context, just in case there is some visitors here who don't know what the Student Experience Project is. Obviously, we all know that, so I will be just glancing over this very quickly. But basically, we try to support every student to be succeeding in their journey through the university. And we want to make sure that they have a sense of belonging, and we create an environment that supports that. So as I was signing up for this course, I always look for ways to improve my teaching. And this is not my first rodeo in the sense that I've been part of this adjunct faculty learning experience before. And I felt that this was such a great opportunity to take it even further. So when I signed up, I was an adjunct professor teaching a course. In the meantime, during the middle of this experience we had here, I also became a full-time faculty advisor. So I feel like I really hit two birds with the same stone, if you will, because as an advisor, it is also very important for me to understand these different points of views and different struggles, and it provides me with the opportunity to help them even better in that role as well. So in my class, I had 18 students in the Industrial and Systems Engineering department. It's an applied statistics class. And the real difficulty with these 18 students is that they are actually 3 different groups: undergrad on campus, graduate on campus, graduate online, and undergrad who are all on campus students. So it's basically 18 students, but 3 completely different groups. And so that's always a challenge as an instructor to pull all the class together. And then in addition, of course, we were trying to focus on these areas based on the surveys. So we all know these areas from the surveys, and the actions I focused on in this class is I usually do many of these things kind of like instinctively when I create my syllabus, when I teach my classes. I give them many opportunities to connect with me. from email to phone to text messages, Canvas, and if they want to Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. And I tell them they can really do that anytime. I mean, if it's really not a good time, then I will not pick it up, because if I'm driving, of course, I'm not going to be doing that. But I try to be available for them. And so that was kind of like, these kind of actions are instinctively done before, but now it made me consciously focus on these areas that we have talked about here. And my actions included having the belonging story. I also had the some further resources for students who need financial assistance, in addition to other resources that I always post for them to help with their studies, library resources, or other campus resources. And there was a little oopsie when I did my surveys, because as I set up the 3 surveys at the beginning of our discussions, my second survey was actually published before there was any action taken. It was an accident. It shouldn't have been published, but the students actually jumped on it because it was a little participation point for them. So they are always trying to gather the participation points. So that survey, second survey, is basically absolutely meaningless, because there was no conscious action done between first and second survey. And it wasn't even time to actually have that survey going. But so I'm gonna be focusing on the first and third survey only. Now, this is the overall results that I have seen in my class. And interestingly, I had some very significant or somewhat significant improvements in the area of identity safety, and also in the institutional growth mindset, and the trust and fairness. So that's between the first and third survey. Again, it's only 18 students, so the highest change was in the identity safety. And the one thing I wasn't really happy to see the self-efficacy going down by 6%, and I didn't think that was going to happen. And now that I think of it, I think it may have to do something with the course content, because it's a applied statistics course. So as the course is actually going deeper and deeper into these topics, it may be a little bit less encouraging, and the difficulty of the course took it in that direction. So let me just focus, because we have a limited time here, on these 2 results: the identity safety, the highest increase, the 6, and the self-efficacy, the biggest decrease, the 6. These are the percentages that I have received throughout the surveys. Again, I kind of ignore second survey because there was not much happening. So I don't, I'm not sure exactly what the reason for these is, because as I try to employ more of these ideas that I went through, I can only think of the material getting harder and harder. There were some responses, qualitative responses, and oops, I didn't mean to do that. And I wanted to ask actually this question to somebody who may know. These responses, are they supposed to be voluntarily providing these qualitative responses, or is there like a box filling out, or is it always given to them, these boxes? Because what I noticed that all the qualitative responses I got was from survey 1 throughout all of these measures, and maybe occasionally survey 2, but absolutely nothing from survey 3. So again, as the class got maybe more difficult, as the semester got more crazy, they were less and less inclined to give a further elaboration of those topics. Maybe that's all I can think of. I know I had a few students in my class who were focused on senior design, the capstone project in the engineering program. So they were really, really busy with other think so. Maybe that was the reason why I didn't really see any qualitative responses. And then the identity safety, which was improved from the first survey to the third survey. So I think that's something that I somewhat expected, and I really feel like I'm trying my best to provide that welcoming environment and inclusive environment for the class. I was very pleased to see that. So just to summarize everything, what I learned here, I believe it's a small sample and also a not very diverse sample that we had in these 18 students. And I didn't really look into breaking it down into categories because I would have just one student as a graduate on-campus student, for example. So that just makes no sense for me to break it down. I'm not sure if these would be any kind of meaningful in that sense. The two biggest results were the identity safety increase and the self-efficacy decrease. So that's definitely something I'm going to have to be focusing on and making sure that I apply those strategies. Luckily, I'm going to be able to teach the same course next semester, so that's going to be good. And then I'm thinking definitely rewriting the syllabus according to the suggestions that I have seen and focusing on the growth mindset. I don't think I focused enough on that portion, and I think I should be possibly going into some discussion about that. And again, we have already some connections in the classroom, but encouraging further connections and connecting the on-campus students with the online students is something that I think I have yet to figure out how to do that. And on a personal level, instead of an instinctive effort I try to make in my teaching in these areas, I will definitely be making a conscious effort using all those strategies that we have seen here. And I really appreciate the opportunity to go into this learning experience. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Lane Rhodes. I do teach in the English department, and my core course is technical communication. It's comprised of primarily computer science students and some geography majors and some English majors. But I am, and as we know, an adjunct faculty there, and happy to have been here for 7 years. I too sing high praises for Kim and Jules and all of the Center for Teaching and Learning, which I frequently recompose as TLC, because I would not have made it through this far without that program. They're definitely a model to be reckoned with and replicated. So I have 3 classes of the same course, 75 students total, 25 in each class. My feeling and conversation with them is we welcome them into the community of the university and ask them to come on in. But where exactly do they know that they belong is the question. So I zeroed in on the belonging in community part of the SEP surveys. It didn't have a whole lot of change across the surveys, but that was my original intent. And do I fit in was the question that I posed to the students. And we had a lot of conversations as well as them constructing their own belonging story. And my conversational style in the classroom is helpful to the students. They report that they feel engaged, they feel not intimidated to speak. And I reinforce that every time I ask them to speak. I wait 12 seconds and instruct them to do the same when they're making presentations, because it gives people a chance a moment to reflect and to get their courage up and to hear their own voices in the room. So I do pause quite a bit when I'm asking them questions and engaging in conversation. So where do I fit in and where exactly? I'd remind them that we have different communities. We're privileged to be in that community immediately in the classroom. Then we have the communities of their majors, the university, their families and social groups at university and outside. So we talk a lot about defining different communities. What communities do you belong to? And how do you fit in? Do you fit in? Do you feel like you belong? We had class discussions that included just brainstorming about what are the items that you can name that we perceive that may separate us, that may segment us into different groups, and whether we belong or not. They threw out, of course, many expected answers like gender identity, social class, gender at all. You know, just initially gender, we have more men than women in our classes. And because of the computer science, that inequity there, more men than women. And educational backgrounds. Are you a first generation person? What is your cultural training? What is your political background? And mental health was also a discussion. If you have neurodiversity, are you neurotypical? Do you have ADD or another adaptation of our neurons in our brains that are different, that helps you to see the world differently? We talk about physicality, meaning size of your physical being and your self-identity there, and abilities or disabilities, some which are visible, some which are not visible. And again, finances came up as well. Language skills, religion, of course, race, just culture. This is record of the brainstorming that we did in class. So I tell them, you know, and I'm just going to go off on the tangent that's an exercise like this means to me. This particular involvement gave me permission to articulate what it is that maybe my belonging story was. I had trouble finding like real directions for how to direct the students to tell their stories, but I did dig and dig, and meanwhile was working on my own belonging story as their instructor. Because I tell them, we just talk very openly, and that's some of the comments that I've gotten back at the narrative comments. I like the conversational style, makes me comfortable. My instructor actually sat down with me to see if I was keeping up and why, or what the obstacles were. Because I tell them that the stories are who we are, who and what we are, that our lives unfold by page, by chapter, by prologue, by reference, by intro, and for many of us in a non-sequential order. In my classroom, the physical space does affect our sense of community. I'm in a computer lab. There are monitors in front of everyone's face, each person's face. And so I do have to move around quite a bit to get into their line of view. So I did offer them this in their assignment. One of my belonging stories was adult attention deficit disorder. It was a shock and relief to find out, but I share with them that that's why sometimes their grading gets done at a slow pace. So self-identity was kind of a risk, but once I did, I got a supportive faculty friendship. And so we help each other by Zooming each week. And for 2.5 hours, we stay in the corner of our screens and just have some accountability. And I'd like to do that with a larger group. It means for people that are on an adjunct track, or adjuncts, perhaps we have a little less to risk than someone who's going for tenure or other. And I recognize that. Probably the most, some of the funny comments that I've gotten off of, with our English department, we have a written survey and they have to answer questions narratively. And so I combined those results with the ones that we talked about in class and their belonging stories by deciding that finances are tight, and I'm going to use open source materials rather than ask them to buy a book. And these are funny comments that I've gotten on those reviews. One student wrote, "You sound like the narrator on one of those nature documentaries. The African element stays with its unit across the Sahara." I mean, funny comments that I get that are, let me know that they're comfortable with feedback. And I perhaps should count this one as high praise. Yours is the only class that I don't fall asleep. So that was a terrific feedback. And in general, the more the semester went on, the easier the discussion was in the room. I just tell them that we need you here because we need your feedback, we need your input, we need your perspective. And the value perhaps of sharing your stories is because we get to see what each other's experiences are. But most of all, I think that this exercise has been about giving permission to me as an instructor and formalizing a way to engage students. I know that I'm over time, so I will stop there if needed.
Oh, welcome to the Student Experience Project in first year writing, spring 2023. Slide 2. So the first slide demonstrates changes from survey 1 to 2 in the 6 learning conditions. Overall, there was either no change or a slightly positive change. Slide 3. It is interesting to note here that the ratio of women to men in my class is 26% to 65%, which is surprising since women now outnumber men 2 to 1 in college, a statistic that my class was unaware of until I asked them to look it up. The ratio of structurally advantaged race to structurally disadvantaged race is about equal. Slide 4. Notice that the gender data for women turned green, coincidentally, correlatively, causatively, as the men-boy group turned red. Similarly, where a rise is shown in the learning conditions for the structurally disadvantaged race group, a corresponding red zone is exhibited for the structurally advanced race group. The first year writing curriculum tends to showcase people of color and women's voices. One module includes the subject of linguistic justice, a form of social justice that validates the identities of writers while pointing out the racism of standard English. Slide 5. As I inform my students in class, they are a new generation of college students who are smashing the mold of who a college student is, and they're breaking down barriers for future students. UNC Charlotte is one of the most diverse college campuses in North Carolina. This chart shows the diversity of our students: first-generation students, adult students, international students, and minority students. Slide 6. Considering the diversity of students, the first intervention strategy I used was the belonging story. During the week of February 13th, after survey 1 and before survey 2, we watched 6 We Belong in College videos. After each video, we had a class discussion to answer what was the obstacle, how did they overcome it. For their belonging stories, the obstacles my students addressed were chronic illness and visible disabilities, such as autism and ADHD, parental expectations, and our many immigrant students trying to overcome language and cultural barriers, with the most common advice to always ask for help and to join a club or organization to feel more connected in this new environment. I recently read estimates of neurodivergent students in our college of approximately 20% with ADHD and about 3% on the autism spectrum. I try to remind my students, you are here, you are on the road, you are doing it. Slide 7. The second intervention strategy I use concerns supporting self-efficacy by integrating self-relevance and a sense of purpose, by helping students connect their coursework and university activities to their future educational and career goals. Slide 8. I remember my experience with the Competency Compass, an online tool developed by the UNC Charlotte University Career Center, where students explore campus activities and courses that align with 8 career competencies. The students explore activities categorized by the competencies, which include academic courses, learning communities, campus jobs, clubs and organizations, and other UNCC-related activities. Slide 9. The student's profile enables them to add favorite activities by clicking on the heart. My students aren't quite there yet, but sample resume building and job interviewing strategies are also listed for many activities. After exploring the website, the students were tasked with writing an informal letter to themselves to answer questions about what is important to them, what competencies they want to develop and achieve by the time they graduate, and to describe one of their past, present, and possible future activities. This interview was conducted on April 12th, after Survey 2 and before Survey 3. Slide 10. Here is the overall report for Survey 3. The report shows slight changes in the 6 learning conditions: identity safety, a green positive; institutional growth mindset, a slight positive; self-efficacy, a slight negative; social belonging, a slight positive; social connectedness, a slight negative; and trust and fairness at 98%. Slide 11. This report dramatically emphasizes the different responses about learning conditions based on gender and race as seen earlier in the semester. Green positives and a 0 appear in the responses for girl, woman identifying students. Green positives, 1 positive and a 0, appear in the responses seen by students of a structurally disadvantaged race. However, the boy-man category shows negative or 0 ratings for all but the institutional growth mindset condition. Similarly, students who consider themselves part of the structurally advantaged race expressed a negative or 0 rating for all conditions except identity safety and a 5% decrease in trust and fairness. Slide 12. I was happy to be a part of the Student Experience Project to help students understand that the university cares about all of its students. Thank you. And thank you for helping me with this technology. You're amazing.
So thank you everyone who presented. Those were really good presentations, and we're gonna get them all edited up really nicely, and we'll have a video that we'll share out with all of you after the fact. So thank you again on behalf of everyone here and the CTL. So I'll open the floor right now for questions. If anyone has questions directed for anyone else who's been taking notes, who would like to start?
I think, Elaine, didn't you say that you've always asked these types of in-depth questions about community to your students from the beginning of the semester and even in previous semesters before SEP? Was that your report out that you've done that previously and just felt led to do that?
Yes, it was.
What can you say any more about that, and how did this formalized experience shift that exercise, or did it at all? I mean, did you just continue doing the same?
Yeah, the major thing that changed, that shifted, was that financial stress aspect of it. It wasn't something that I had on the forefront of my mind, to be honest with you. The social connectedness, the belonging in my course, creating a sense of community, that was from the beginning. That was my philosophy in teaching, to create a safe space in community. So what really shifted was just that financial distress piece that I did not have at the forefront. And so this experience definitely has given me that extra resource and to be more mindful moving forwards. The second part to that was my syllabus creation. So this summer, I'm very excited to be kind of revamping my syllabus and making it match to what I was already doing. But what I said in my presentation through self-reflection and the validation that I received is that now with this, I can actually like tie it to, you know, what success looks like with what I was already doing. So now I can label, okay, well, this is impacting self-efficacy, this impacted social connectedness, this impacted growth mindset, and so forth.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you, Lane.
I had not counted financial as something that was a lot of the students' concerns, but they indicated, many of them, that it was. And again, like with permission, it also gave me a formalized platform to say, or to judge that, to gauge that, because I've always wondered if they could afford these textbooks. For me, in my life, many times $20 would break the bank, and $30 and $40 seemed impossible. So that's why I'm going to go to open source now, because they've confirmed that that's an issue.
Yeah, that was a great eye opener for myself as well, because again, I didn't really was thinking of that aspect. And it also gave me like permission to address that. It gave me like this open way, because they self-reported that. So that was really impactful.
Because I felt like I was getting up into their business from previously. I felt, because I didn't know that it was okay to engage that. But now, of course, it's anonymous, so that helps.
Okay, so I believe we've got Anne on the phone now. So I'm gonna ask Anne to unmute, and let's see if we can hear her. Okay, Anne, go ahead and unmute. Or I wonder if I can unmute you. Let's see if I have the power to do that. I might. I can ask you to unmute, but it looks like you have to unmute yourself. Well, while we're waiting to get Anne unmuted, I know that Agnes, you actually had a question for us, didn't you? You had a question about your data. Do you want to ask that question while we're waiting here on getting some technical issues straightened out? Oh, you're on mute, Agnes.
I'm sorry, I've done this
problem.
before. So I was just wondering how the qualitative comments get incorporated into the survey. Is it there's a box at every question that the students can volunteer their answers, or is there a prompt on certain questions? Or because I noticed that my qualitative answers were from survey 1 mostly, and not much from the last survey.
Okay, so who wants to tackle that question?
So I can talk a little bit about that. The opportunity for the students to provide that qualitative feedback is randomized. So a student may get a couple of opportunities for random questions when they're taking the survey to just provide some additional comments. It's not required, so they don't have to do that. So it is something that's completely voluntary. And I think it is more common that in the beginning of the semester, the students will be a little more motivated and leaving more feedback than, when they get towards the end and they have all of these things going on, more things on their plate. So yeah, they'll get the random qualitative options for them to leave feedback. For each student, it would be different, and they don't have to leave those comments. It's optional.
Okay, thank you. And can I actually ask one more question from Sam specifically? You are the one who has done it several times over several semesters. So do you actually notice an increasing trend over the semesters? And does it get hard to actually improve things after a while? Because there are many opportunities, but and there's always room for improvement, but is that a challenge after a certain time?
So I will say that, for me, I look at these interventions and things that we do in the context of the Student Experience Project to be very cumulative. So the first time you go through it, the first semester you participate, you're gonna do some of these interventions, not all of them, just a few. And then when you move into the next semester, you're going to keep doing those things you did the previous semester, and you'll have ideas of more things you want to do. And then maybe you come to a summer semester where you have time, like Elaine was talking about, you're going to redo your whole syllabus. You take on sort of like a larger task that maybe you didn't have time to do during the fall or spring. And so for me, it does come to a point where, I do see increases throughout the whole semester, but my biology 1110 course, which is the one I've been doing the SEP in since 2019, I feel like now I have just got that, down pat. We've got so many of these interventions just really built into the course. The entire course has really been redesigned to center around a lot of these, social connectedness and belonging with the group work and all of the active learning. The syllabus has been redesigned. We've incorporated an open access textbook. So all of the lectures were redone to go with that other resource. The grading policies have been completely changed to be more equitable. And so I think that, over time, what you do is you just realize more, more about your students, and you'll just continually keep improving. I was actually going to ask a question of everyone here, looking forward as you move into the next year of your teaching. I anticipate that you will all keep doing the things that you've learned about this year in your courses, but have any of you, thought of extra interventions or, something like a bigger task you really want to tackle with your course? And if so, how you anticipate that affecting your students? Because I do think that it's valuable. Even if you didn't see a large increase this semester, any impact you're having on your students is a good impact, right? And so, sometimes I only see a few percentage increases in my classes too. Sometimes I see double digits. It's all, it's dependent on the class, I think. But yeah, I was just kind of curious, like what everyone here was thinking, kind of just looking ahead into the future, if you've thought about some other maybe larger interventions or things that you would want to implement in your courses.
Mhm. Tying lesson objectives or maybe to some of these areas of concern. I don't know. I'd have to be creative to work it in as kind of the framework, but it interests me.
Well, I have a question for each of you. I have been just so impressed. My name is Regina Brown. I'm the director of the Office of Academic Diversity and Inclusion, one of the partners and supporting the SEP on campus. And so thank you so much for your work and dedication and how you've applied this work with your students. I also want to take a minute and thank the CTL as well with Jules and Dr. Book for their offering this opportunity, as well as Sam for supporting all of you as you went through this work. But I wanted to ask a question. I know Sam started the question about how you might use this going forward and with your work in other classes, other sections of your classes. But I wanted to ask specifically about the assessment pieces, because we are, of course, working with lots of different cohorts on campus to have them use these interventions. But I wanted to ask about, I guess, how you felt about the technical pieces of kind of using PERTs, because obviously it sounds like you got great data and great feedback, both quantitative and qualitatively, but wanted to find out, like, if you're not a part of a cohort and you're not using PERTs, do you feel like that's going to be something that will change how you might address adding interventions? Or now that you've had access to know what these interventions are, do you feel comfortable just kind of looking at them and choosing, or would you need some support in that? So that's the one great thing that our office gets to do, is to figure out like how we can continue to support individuals who have been exposed to SEP. And so I want to get a little bit of understanding about how we can continue to do that if you're not in a space where you're actively using PERTs, or maybe we offer that individually. So if anyone could share their thoughts on the actual tool that you use to collect the data and how effective that was, and if you want that continued connection with your students through that medium.
I would say for me, it was very helpful to have that tool. I was coming in doing it from a framework of just understanding that, the human element is how you gain student success or any success of what you're, leading others to learn new skills or not. So I came in already with that philosophy, but when I saw in like a framework through PERDS of what those strategies are and how they match with building that sense of humanity and community in my classroom, it was really eye-opening for me. So it's just it served for me to be a tool that gave me a clear roadmap. So where I got kind of stuck on some things, I was able to go someplace and pick something and think about it and say, well, I already did that, but I did it in this way. Let me try to do it in this way, and let me see what results I get. So for me, it just kind of solidified, and it gave me a place to go to match what I was already doing, but taking it to the next level of something I was probably not thinking about. Or, okay, I did like half of that strategy. Now I got the other part. Let me intervene that part. So it was just another resource for me to continue to build the sense of community. So it was very helpful, and I would love to continue to use that.
I agree. And I think as an instructor, using it was very easy and convenient. And I think based on the feedback that I received from my students, they also found it easy to navigate and use. So I too would like to continue to have access to that resource if it would be possible.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to be able to use it too, because I'm teaching a class in the fall, and I've already got 15 students signed up about the Western civilization. It's a liberal studies course, and the history of LGBTQ plus communities, and how different influences have lasted through the ages, and where we are right now. So that'll be especially important if I could use that to gauge their feeling of inclusion.
I agree with everyone's comments as well. I hope to be able to use it, use it in my future classes as well.
Thank you. This feedback is very helpful as we champion like what technology we use and how we work on, again, integrating this on our campus. So thank you for that feedback.
And thank you, Regina. If we don't have any further questions, I will go ahead and do a closing here. This has been an outstanding, it's the first time we've ever taken the Adjunct Faculty Learning Community to what we call, Kim and I talked about it, we're like, what are we going to call it? Is the Advanced Adjunct Faculty Learning Community? Is it like level 2? And it really is. As when we were looking at who we were recruiting for this Adjunct Faculty Learning Community, we were looking for adjunct faculty who have been here with us at UNC Charlotte, who are committed to the UNC Charlotte community and who are teaching those undergraduate courses that really do touch a lot of our students. And that's y'all who are on this call, and the 10 people who participated in this cohort. That's you. And you signed up, you said you were interested, and based on your presentations today, you did outstanding work, and the students that you worked with this year really, really felt it. The results that you shared with us today showed that. And I'm so excited to hear that you want to continue to use the Student Experience Project with your courses. And through OADI, through Regina's department with AJ and Regina and Sam and the other faculty fellows there, you will be able to have an opportunity to hopefully do that. So thank you so much, Regina and AJ and Sam. Thank you so much to the Office of Academic Diversity and Inclusion for championing the Student Experience Project and for making it possible for us at the CTL to partner with you on this. We believe so strongly in the Student Experience Project, and we think that it should be in every single class at UNC Charlotte, and we have that vision with you too. And so we are here to help make that happen with you as well. So thank you very much to everyone who participated in the Adjunct Faculty Learning Community this spring semester. I just want to give a huge round of applause to each and every one of you. I hope that your semesters end smoothly, your final exams go well, and that everyone gets a good break and some well-deserved rest this summer. And we'll see you all soon. Definitely. Thank you.